Hey folks, welcome to Bear Mountain today. Today's topic is Bokashi. You know, we did a couple of videos, and we'll link to them, on our Bokashi system and how we used a soil factory to kind of as one aspect of taking the finished pickled garbage, so to speak, and make it into something that could be either used for worm food directly in a worm bin or to, you know, let it decompose a little further on, and we actually were using it in our potting mixes. But there's also another way you can deal with it. One of the ways you can deal with it is you can bury it in your garden area. So particularly if your ground isn't frozen, which we're blessed with being so close to the Pacific Ocean, our ground rarely freezes, and our frosts are usually in the low 20s, I guess, is kind of the worst we get. So we're blessed that our ground doesn't freeze up in the wintertime. I mean, you know, if you're someplace at a higher elevation and you get that long cold winter and everything freezes up, a soil factory is definitely the way to go. So in this case, what we wanted to show today is we're taking one of our beds that had a lower fertility in it. This is a no-dig bed, and unfortunately, to do this method, you actually got to dig. So it's going to kind of change things up a little bit, because the basics of what we're doing with the pickled fermentation of the household kitchen waste is we're going to be burying it probably about 6 inches deep, and mix it together with some of the soil that we're burying with it, and that over a very short period of time. Usually if it's warm enough, it could be as little as a couple of weeks, but in winter time it's probably more like about a month or so. The worms come in, they work on it, and it stabilizes the acidity of it. So the whole point of burying it is you're skipping that step of running it through a soil factory, and you're using the actual biology in the soil itself. So usually within 2 to 4 weeks, like I said, depending on the temperature, you can come back and you can begin to plant. We started with the Bokashi buckets near the end of November and are kind of working our way through this 9-foot bed. And at this point, we're about halfway through. The white post kind of delineates where we buried our last grouping of it. So what I kind of wanted to show you today was what the stuff looks like coming out of the Bokashi bucket and actually how it lays out in the soil in the trench. And then I'm going to go back to our first amount of Bokashi that we buried back at the end of November and just see how well it's been decomposed. So because it is wintertime, I'm anticipating there's still going to be stuff in it that we can see, but most of the softer stuff that would have been peels or cores or stuff like that is probably going to be gone. What's going to be left are going to be more carbon-based type things, like if they were paper towels or stuff like that, they'll probably be left. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to dig this trench where the cat is playing. And this is an important thing to note. We have cats running around all over this place. And the interesting thing about this material that we bury, once it's in the soil, the cats don't dig for it. So we've had no wild animals in here at all digging for anything, thinking they're going to find something. So that is an interesting point to note, that once it's gone through the pickling process, it's not appealing to.
Does it appeal to them when you first opened it?
Yeah, that's kind of weird what they're going for. It's not so much the stuff that's coming out of the bucket, but it's more like if there's any like liquid left. And I don't know what it is about it, but it's like that for them, the cats are kind of interested in. But once you bury the stuff in the soil, they don't care. So let's dig this out and see what we're gonna do here. What are you doing, Mr. Peas? Okay.
Normally you wouldn't dig this at all.
No, normally once I'd bury stuff, I wouldn't dig it at all.
And then you would just at some point in time would just plant in it.
Right.
We're only digging it to show you.
Exactly. We want to see, okay, what does this stuff look like? Do we see anything in it? And I'm already digging down about 6 to 8 inches, and I'm not running into anything. Oh, it's like totally gone. Oh, no, it's not totally gone. There is one little piece. Looks like a paper towel. Yeah. paper towel there, right there, that one didn't decompose. And you can see that some of it's not decomposed yet, but it's definitely moving on it. So it's still in there, but you don't smell anything. There's no smells. So the bottom, very, very bottom of it appears to be there's some of it that's still left.
And I don't smell anything.
No, not at all. There's a little pickle smell to it, but that's about it. You got to remember, this was the dead of winter, so, you know, it's really actually working out pretty well. I'm not sure I'm going to dig any more of it.
It was just to see if it was working.
And this trench was full, so it was full all the way across with about 5 gallons of waste, and most of it's gone. So it looks to me like actually we could probably even plant over this.
We'll have to wait till it's gone to plant?
No, you know, if it's like, so what we found here is like within, you know, we got 2 months into it, the vast majority of it's gone. Maybe I wouldn't start with radishes, but I would start with something like lettuces or, you know, something that's just a root vegetable, like a cole crop of some kind or another. Maybe don't go with the carrots and the turnips yet, but certainly the next rotation through there shouldn't be any problem at all. I mean, when the soil temperature warms up, this stuff is definitely going to disappear. Okay, so we dug up something that had been buried 2 months ago now, and we could see that, you know, the vast majority of it was gone. There are still some harder to digest things like some pumpkin rinds in the bottom and some paper towels that were still being worked on. But for the most part, you know, it was, I'd say, wouldn't you think about like almost all gone? And there was no smell.
I couldn't hardly find it in the viewfinder of the camera. I couldn't see it very well, so I didn't see much.
Right.
Maybe an eggshell, but I'm not sure I even caught it.
Right. So the next thing we're going to do is this post right here marks where the last time I buried was. So I'm going to dig out about 1 foot, a trench that is about 1 shovel depth. Now, this is obviously no longer no-till because we are indefinitely digging.
But you're not going to do this to all the beds.
No, I only picked the ones that seem like the fertility level is maybe not as good as it should be, or maybe they weren't as productive. And there seems to be a little bit more compaction in this one. So I guess what I'm just trying to do is say, okay, what happens if I boost this with a form of a double dig in a sense, because that's kind of what we're doing here.
Okay, so this will add more benefit to it than the no-till part of it being destructive.
Well,
you're hoping.
I think it's like this. It's like, first of all, what we wanted to do is demonstrate that yes, this can be used as a way to putting organic material back into your garden system. And secondly is like, look, there's 50,000 ways to get to the same destination.
Right.
Okay. You could be a total religious no-till person and say, all I do is I use a deep mulch compost system, and over time, everything kind of works itself out. In some cases, some people, like when they're starting no-till beds, they'll come through and they'll actually till them to get it worked up deep, or they'll use, they'll have somebody, particularly if it's a larger area, come in with maybe some form of a deep plow that can rip a compaction layer out. Other people say, well, I can't afford that, I can't do that, so maybe they use biology, like using deep-rooted plants that will have a known history of punching through compaction layers, like daikon or field radishes or things of that nature. In this case, we've got a really controlled environment here. So we're talking about, you know, it's never been a pure no dig system. So I guess what I'm trying to do is say, well, okay, let's take advantage of this and work some organic material in deeper. It's a little bit along the ideas of John Jevons's system, but you know, it's kind of a combination of a lot of different ideas. But so the idea is we're going down below about a foot, but still within the root zone of where plants will be. You can see it's about a shovel deep, about that. And we'll do this all the way across the bed. Okay, we got the trench dug, and what I'm going to do is, just to be sure, is crack any kind of compaction layer that might be down below this. I don't really feel much of anything, but I'm just taking my spading fork and just kind of going to loosen it up a little bit. The whole idea is just kind of crack the soil. Okay, now that we've got it kind of aerated out, one of the things I do before I put the biochar down is, this is the same mineral biochar mixture I use in my worm bins. And what it is, it's roughly 50% ground up eggshell, which is calcium carbonate, and about 50% biochar. And this is a really fine pounded down biochar. It's a little bit powdery, but the idea is I'm putting some extra calcium in. If there is an acidity issue, this will kind of help mitigate it a little bit. And then one of the things is we dump the bucket out on a pretty regular basis. And this is from about 4 days ago, so there's not much leachate left coming out of the thing. And what we do on our biochar buckets, or biochar, excuse me, our Bokashi buckets, is when we finish, we'll put the date when we're gonna kind of pull it out, or approximate date. Today's what is today?
4th.
Yeah, 4th, and this is for the 5th, so I'm a day early. Darn. It's going to be okay. So, and then also I just kind of make a note here in the date that I sealed it up. So this time of year in the wintertime, when I try to give it at least 3 weeks pickling time, we keep it in the garage so it stays about 65. It's on a heat mat. So it keeps moving along okay, but in the summertime, this stuff can move pretty fast. You know, once I seal up a bucket, particularly in June, July, I can easily have it all finished off by 2 weeks. So tends to go pretty fast in the summertime. So I'm gonna undo the magic lid here. And question, do you smell anything? Take a sniff. I don't smell anything. And sometimes too, you can see in the inside like a white mold. There's no odors with this. This white mold is okay. As a matter of fact, most people say that's a very good sign. It's a form of, it's a beneficial form of fungus. If you see pinks and reds and blues and things like that, and you open up the bucket and it smells just putrid, you're going to want to dispose of that in a different manner, probably in a thermophilic compost pile. Spread around really pretty good, and spray some more LAB on it to help rebalance things out. But this is pretty much a big, huge chunk of pickled everything. Oh, there's a little smell there, but there was no smell when I opened it, so. But it's not much. It just kind of smells a little pickled.
I don't really smell anything, but the wind is moving away from me.
Believe me, if it really smelled bad, it wouldn't matter where a gentle breeze would blow. So, coffee grounds, pumpkin, salad residues, chicken bones. Got a chicken bone right there. And onions, some paper scraps. All this stuff is pretty much
So it's going into
done.
our soil instead of the landfill.
Exactly. So like you folks in California now, you have a law that mandates that you compost your food waste from your kitchen waste scraps, this is an excellent way to do it. And you get the benefit instead of sending it off to somebody else and then having to buy it back. You eliminate the middleman. So I put some more of this eggshell biochar mixture on. And then I'm going to put just a pinch of the soil that we dug out, just to kind of get it mixed into the stuff. Yeah, I know you like the smell of that now. But what I'm going to do is just kind of mix this stuff up. It's just to get some of it in it. You know, and if you're doing a lot of canning and stuff, things that you don't need, that you don't make vinegars out of or anything like that, you know, food scrap waste, this is an excellent thing to do with it. This is about it. You know, next thing is you just bury the top and make sure your cats don't, you know, eat it before you get it buried. Hey, back it off. So I'm just going to make sure that we get it all nice and buried. Okay, so we're just putting the last of the compost over the top. Not really a heavy load. We're talking about like a 1/2 inch tops. Just enough to give it a top dress. This is a aged urban compost. And basically, since this is February, we're still going to get substantial amount of rain probably over the next several months. So it's still our wet season. So this is going to have more than adequate moisture. Showed you a picture of a worm that was already making a beeline for things. I would anticipate that, you know, as we're warming up now, this bed is probably going to be in production. Definitely this half of the bed will be in production this month, and this other half will probably finish off. Looks like we got maybe 3 more trenches to dig, tops. So we'll probably finish the bed off by the end of March, because I've got 2 more buckets left already in process, and this one will start up again. Takes us about a week to fill the bucket, give or take, and then it just we'll see what happens from that point. After that point, we can start putting our Bokashi back into our soil factory and just kind of keep that process going. But now what we're going to want to determine, okay, we've determined that the stuff rots away real easy. It's pretty disturbing to the soil structure, at least for the first foot. But I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with what we plant on here this year. We're going to start out with lettuce on this end, and then we'll probably put, we got some cole crops started, so we'll put cabbages and broccolis on the other end here as they go through. And then probably follow with a rotation after that with they'll be finished by June-ish or so, and we'll start with a bean rotation in. So no root crops in here until fall. That's just a personal preference. It's not necessarily that you have to wait that long, but just thought that, you know, we'd just kind of give it that length of time and see how it goes. Now, some important things just before we wrap this up is moisture is important. So if you live in a dry climate that's warm, but the soil is really dry, you may really want to make certain that your garden beds are really well irrigated before you start burying this stuff. I mean, burying the material which has some moisture in it, but if you're burying it into soil that is really dry, that soil is going to wick the moisture out of the stuff, and your decomposition rate will probably come to a stop. So what you want to do is make sure you have an environment that has more than enough moisture to you know, get things going. Like I said, here we're going to get natural rain, so it's not going to be a big deal. But if you lived in Arizona or something like that, now something to keep considered. And you want to keep it irrigated, not sopping wet, but, you know, enough moisture in it for the first week or two so the material can really have a chance to decompose. And that's about it. It's not really complicated, and doesn't really even take a lot of time. It took more time to film it than actually probably to do it. So,
Yeah.
Any thoughts you have?
No.
You smell anything?
No smell.
All right.
So,
That's important if you're living in an area with neighbors. You don't want to smell. So, and the animals, although they're checking it out, they're not really interested in doing any kind of digging or anything. So, and that's what we found too. Again, that, once the stuff is wetted down or is buried, it just, they have no interest in it. And we've got plenty of raccoons and skunks and all kinds of critters that wander around this place at night, and they're not looking for anything. So I'm assuming that just the odor is not something they're interested in.
I didn't smell it. I probably smell the bucket now.
Yeah, the bucket needs to be cleaned out before we use it again.
So,
Okay, well, I guess at this point we'll just say, hey, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.